is early evening in the old historic market town of Morpeth in Northumberland of North East England. I have checked into the Premier Lodge. It has cost me £50 and I'm staying here for one night. I am going to give you a room tour, and then after that we're going to head out into the glorious blue sky evening, not a cloud in the sky, and perfect conditions for a walkabout. But before we do that, let's get to that room tour. So what have we got over here? A desk, teas, coffees, and also my drone on charge at the moment. Over here we've got a fan and some wardrobe space, a TV, a chair in the corner. It is a double room, and then if I turn around you can see I've got a private shower room as well. Out the window, showed you a second ago, but we've got a really good view of the car park. So a bit of neighbourhood watch this evening. I'll be keeping my eye on what's going on. Not too much, I hope. Let's get out there and see Morpeth. Starting off in the old market square. This is the place where it all started for the town. Back in, look at that old storefront. Back in 1199, King John issued a charter to hold a market here on this very piece of land, and it became a very, very popular market. As I come round, you catch a glimpse of the impressive town hall. The original town hall was built in 1714, but unfortunately it suffered a fire and had to be rebuilt in the mid-1850s, I believe. There's an information board here telling you all about it, and another one on the other side which shows you what the marketplace looked like back when it was thriving. People would come down here to sell all kinds of things, including clothes, food, drink, salt, which was important for keeping the food fresh. Over there is the old clock tower and a water fountain in front of it. And back in the day, the cattle market was also a part of the main market as well, and so you would get animals being brought down here, not just for transporting things around, but also for selling. They would be slaughtered right here on this market square. Behind me now is the old clock tower, and the sun is perfectly positioned on it. It's behind the camera, so we're getting a good view up the road of it. It was built in the early 1600s, but it didn't have a clock, believe it or not. Not until one was added in the early part of the 1700s. The bells in the tower still work, and they are rung on special occasions. It's had many uses over the years, including being used as a storage area for the town's fire engine, and also a meat store, presumably when the markets were thriving. Another beautiful idyllic view of the river and a bridge called the Oldgate Bridge. It's the fourth bridge to be built in this position. The original was built in 1826. It was a suspension bridge and it collapsed with about 100 people on it. Luckily nobody, I'm laughing because nobody died. It was all good. The second bridge was a girder bridge, the third one a Meccano bridge, and then this one was built in 1970. And it's a pretty grand structure, to be fair. This area does suffer from flooding, or it did before they built the flood defences. There was some very serious flooding down this way in 1963 and 2008. I'm no fisherman, but this is something that I did not know existed. It's called Oliver's Mill Fish Pass. And essentially it says there that migration is an essential part of the life cycle for salmon and sea trout. However, barriers like weirs make this much more difficult. So we have a large weir here. You can see that someone has built a wooden ladder that goes up and helps fish struggling to get back upstream. Clever, clever. Waiting at the top of the ladder for dinner, presumably. Behind the trees is that large weir on the River Wansbeck. And behind me is a good example of why you've got to be careful before parking your car underneath a big tree. So we have two bridges here, one behind me which is a footbridge and another one next to it called the Telford Bridge, which is a road bridge. The footbridge is where the original stood. That was constructed back in the 13th century, and there used to be a toll gate on it where the chaplain or keeper would collect tolls known as pontage. However, because of a number of accidents, a new bridge was built, that's the Telford Bridge, in 1831, and it was named after its engineer, Thomas Telford. However, it was thought at the time that people continued using this smaller, older bridge to avoid the tolls on the larger bridge, and so 3 years later in 1834 they blew up the pedestrian bridge. They decided that wasn't a good idea though, and a few years later they replaced it with a wooden bridge, and then that was replaced again by a new iron footbridge in 1869, and that's the one that we see here today. If you look closely though, you can still see the central stone pier and abutments left over from the original bridge. We're back in Carlisle Park. I'm hoping to make it to this castle right here, so it's about a 10-minute walk. Looks like a beautiful walk though. It is about half an hour from sundown, so we're getting that glorious soft light cast across everything. This is the Emily Wilding Davison Memorial and Statue. Emily died in 1913 on the 4th of June at the Epsom Derby, when she tried to pin the colours of the Suffragette movement onto the King's horse, and she was struck down. She died 4 days later. She is buried here at St Mary's in Morpeth. The sun has just set behind me, and just as I thought I had found the spot where the castle used to be, it turns out, long story short, the original castle from the 11th century doesn't exist anymore. In the 13th century, the king at the time got it destroyed, and in the 14th century a new castle was built, but only a small section of the wall and the very modified and refurbished gatehouse exist. I've just walked past them to get to this mound, and this is where the 11th century original castle was actually built. It was a motte and bailey castle. The motte means mound, so the keep would have been built on top of this mound, and the bailey was the courtyard and walls around the bottom of the mound that would keep it secure and safe. In any event, we are not seeing any castles here, but we are seeing some spectacular views across Morpeth. It has been an epic couple of hours taking a walk around. Glad I came, and I thank you very much for watching the video. I'm going to call it a day. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing. They really help the channel when you do that. But all that's left, I think, is for me to say good night from Morpeth. See you in the next video.